Hello, everybody. We are here for the first MANRS Community Meeting of 2026. And well, my name is Douglas. I'm one of the members of the steering committee. And could you please pass for the next slide, Alejandro? And we are opening now, and let's talk about the agenda. On the next slide, yeah. Well, some announcements about the. I like to say that that's the bureaucratic party, but that's part that this is not true because we have such a good things on that part. This meet that is good to see. So we have some review of the methodology of the network operators program, some things that are coming. MANRS Enterprise that will be presented by Andre, and engagement activities by Alejandro that I was already talking to you. MANRS Observatory 2.0 that I am very excited to see also. And at the end, but not later, but not I forgot the expression in English, sorry. We will talk a bit about the security itself with TJI. And Nicolas will do a presentation for us for almost the same topic, but on a very pragmatic view. And also Steve Wallace that is already with us also. Okay, so now the word is going to Andre.
Yes, thank you. Good day, everyone, wherever you are. So let me kick off update from the Secretariat, and I'd like to start with review of Network Operators Program. But before we start, then Alejandro, you can progress to the next slide in the meanwhile, and probably the next one as well. Let me talk about Douglas, you're absolutely right. I'll start with more bureaucratic part. That's probably dry. But it's very important because that's the foundation that we built last year. And when I say we as the community build this foundation that allows us now to progress into review in a sort of, structured and transparent way. So you might remember that last year we introduced and adopted what we call MANRS development process. And this is a formal process, but documented process that outlines how MANRS specifications are created and how they are updated, right? So it's a very predictable process that also results in a structured library of MANRS specifications. You may remember that before MANRS specifications such as MANRS actions or IXP implementation guide or network operators implementation guide. They were all of different format, different names. Some of them looked like web pages and not like a specification, which was very difficult to convey to external parties, for instance. But also it was not very clear how those documents came to life, what was the process used to develop them, and who participated in this process. So this level of transparency was not there, although those who participate know that that was really a community process with task forces and working groups that developed all this content. So the MDP serves the purpose to introduce transparency. So it's very clear how specification evolving over time. It creates stability because the names are stable and we create stable references. Even if a new specification is developed, we can still refer to the old one. That's the naming conventions. And of course, consistency, because all MANRS specifications now look like specifications, like MANRS documents. So that's a family, our library that we should be proud of. And in fact, what I started with, it created a foundation for future reviews. So I think we have this baseline now we renamed all existing specifications in accordance with the MANRS naming scheme. And now we can start. Now we can create new specifications. We can update existing specifications, and everything will be very, very clear in the library for external parties. Next slide. So this is the lineup of our library. That's what we've created so far. It doesn't mention two first documents. The first document, the first specification, as the MANRS development process itself. And of course, we use the MANRS development process to develop and adopt the MANRS development process. So that was the first test. And the second document, which is not mentioned here as well, this is the charter. We updated the charter last year. You probably remember and probably voted for this. And that used the MDP. That was another proof of concept that MDP works, and it adds this transparency and structure. So with this more formal thing, let me go into substance and to the next slide. And yes, so we end of last year we're ready for starting a review of MANRS programs. But of course, the question, where do we start? And what should be the scope of this review? As usual, we ask this question, the community, and we create a survey that to understand the scoping, how community feels about the current state of MANRS programs and the scope of potential reviews. Okay, something happened. That's not good. Can you still hear me?
We can still hear you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
let me
Yes.
just rearrange something.
Yes.
My display isn't. Okay, all right, yes. Okay, now I can see the slides again. So we launched this survey beginning of this year, really to determine for all the programs that exist in MANRS, to determine if review is necessary, what would be the scope, how deep this review should go, and which areas may need more attention. And we try to make it very clear, and by developing a very high-level survey, that this is not the review of actions themselves. This is not the review of the program, because as you know, we are all engineers. We like to jump into substance and provide real feedback. But here, the overall idea was, okay, give us some guidance on the priorities and scope. Next slide, please. So about 40 people participate and voice their opinion. A majority is network operators, which is not surprisingly, because network operators is the largest program in MANRS. It was followed by IXPs and CDN and cloud providers. Almost half of the participants participate in MANRS were MANRS sort of participants for 1 to 5 years. So not just newcomers, they have experience. And almost 35% were people that spent in MANRS more than 5 years. So meaning that those voices had a lot of experience and understanding, and they saw the evolution of MANRS as well. Next slide, please. The main message that we got from the survey is that MANRS programs and actions, they're fit for purpose. There was no real need indicated to change the baseline, the format, or the scope of MANRS programs. There were, although, some feedback that MANRS actions would benefit from a more detailed implementation guidance and auditing requirements. So that was across all the programs. And as far as priority is concerned, 50% of participants ranked the NetOps program as their top priority review, followed by the IXP program. And if you look at this chart, you see this red bars. Those didn't get, for some reason, in the legend, but they mean extending the scope. So for as you can see, for all three programs, network operators, IXP and CDN, there was really not a significant desire to change the scope of MANRS actions, which is different from network equipment vendor program. So when we come to that, we'll probably need to investigate in more detail what people see as a potential change of the scope. All right, next slide, please. We also asked two questions. One question was, okay, if we introduce a new set of actions, how should existing participants comply with that? And we offer two alternatives. One is that there is one set of actions that is active, and existing participants are given a grace period over which they need to become compliant with the new set. And another option was, okay, let's do the versioning. While we have now names that can distinguish, and you can specify which version of the MANRS actions you comply with. I think it was almost 50-50, but the more preference was still given to the first approach, when there is one single set of action that probably reduces any possible confusion and makes sample MANRS sort of a simple, very focused effort. And giving grace period was considered a good idea. The second question we asked, what to do with non-compliant participants. And well, this is not a secret that we don't have a real process of expelling participants. We haven't had this situation before. We had a few cases where participants decide to leave MANRS for different reasons. And we asked the question, so what should be the situation, whether non-compliant participants should be somehow asked to leave MANRS, or should we give them an opportunity to maybe at their own pace to get their backyard in order and experience the bad publicity, because as you know that we publish this course, so people, external people can see that not only that you're a MANRS participant, but also your scores. And going into red may be not the best way to project your security posture and your quality of your services. So again, there was 50-50, again, slight preference for the approach that we use today, meaning that we do not kick off people specifically, but we publish their performance indicators, which is probably good, a way of motivating them either to improve or leave MANRS on their own. Next slide, please. Okay, well, now we are getting to the Network Operators Program review. Next slide, please. So just to remind you, and I'm sure you remember this, there are 4 actions in the Network Operators Program. 3 of them, which is marked in blue, are mandatory, and 1 of them, anti-spoofing, is optional. The first action is filtering and preventing propagation of incorrect routing information. The second one is anti-spoofing. It's source address validation of different types that you are not emitting traffic with spoofed source IP addresses. Coordination and routing information, which means that you register your routing policy and intended announcements in the IRR and RPKI. Next slide, please. So the process has begun. We are following the MDP, of course. The proposal for review was submitted by the Secretariat and announced by the Steering Committee in April. You probably saw that announcement. The working group formation has been finalized, in fact, and we already had 2 very productive calls discussing the approach and making first steps in review of the Network Operators Program. We have more than 20 participants, a lot of expertise, people many of you know, co-chairs Andrew Gallo from Community and myself from the Secretariat, and the charter has been approved at last meeting, so it's official, and you can look by clicking on this link. We have a pretty ambitious timeline. We plan to deliver the draft set of actions in Q3, by the end of Q3, and then the MDP process will follow, which means there will be an opportunity for the MANRS community to review stuff, and then for the MANRS participants again to review and approve this to be adopted, ratified by the steering committee. So that's the MDP process, and hopefully we can complete this by the end of this year. Just to maybe a few words about what we are doing now. We are sort of stepping back. We're not jumping into editing the existing MANRS actions right away. We're stepping back and we're looking, hey, let's look what kind of issues we see with the existing actions and potential for improvement. So we're taking 20,000 feet view on the MANRS actions before deciding what needs to be changed, and then we'll go into editing. Next slide, please. All right, that's a different topic. So, Douglas, I don't know, maybe it's better to pause now and see if people have any questions at this point.
Yeah, well, I don't see any questions, but if anybody pronounce, we can stop and ask. Well, I think you can go, but because now the fun is beginning on the new changes. Can go now.
Okay, let's move to another topic. The second topic we want to present as updates from the Secretariat, which is about the potential MANRS Enterprise program, or how MANRS relates to enterprises. Next slide, please. All right. So some of you may remember an effort, and there is still existing working group called MANRS Plus on creating an elevated tier of MANRS participation. And the idea is that for enterprises, the main focus is on enterprises in various industry sectors, and especially outside the telecom sector, such as finance, healthcare, automotive, for instance, that the current set of actions, they do not really fit the purpose. They need more extended requirements, but also high level of assurance, right? That they might rely on MANRS Plus, I would call certification, in their choices for connectivity provider, or in demanding certain things from their connectivity provider. It also was built to be conditioned for inclusion in common InfoSec frameworks. And the thing is that if you talk to CISO from, let's say, fintech company, where network operations are not really core of their business, elevating routing security to the level of their attention is very difficult. But if you present this set of actions as a module to their InfoSec framework, to their overall security organization, then the conversation changes, and it becomes much more easier. So that was the background. And next slide, please. And yes, the result, the output of this work is the MANRS control metrics. Maybe Alejandra can cut and paste the URL to the metrics if you're interested to look. It's congruent to the MANRS network operators actions, but they're more, and the controls are much more detailed, and also auditing requirements are much more detailed. So it's very clear what is being audited and how, which adds to transparency and confidence level. Next slide, please. So that part of the work has been done. And then was the turn to enterprises. And what we realized at that point is that the level of awareness and the level of demand coming from the customer client side from enterprises is very, very low. In fact, many network operators stated that this sort of apathy from the enterprise side, from their customer side, prevents them from implementing effective security controls and preventing them to effectively protect their customers. For instance, asking customer to register ROAs sometimes becomes an obstacle. And of course, ROA can help enormously to make your ingress controls effective. So it really takes two to tango here. But the awareness of the enterprise, the understanding the importance of this issue and the importance of this collaboration was very, very low. And we experienced this ourselves. So the idea, how can we bring enterprise over and raise their awareness and also create the incentives for them to look at routing security from a different angle rather than some technical issue that probably connectivity providers should solve by themselves. Next slide. Okay, so if you look from the enterprise perspective, you see this enormous internet, 78,000 networks exchanging routing information. That's how routing system works. This is an excellent diagram from CADA. It's outdated, but I think many of the dots are still valid. Each of the dots represents an autonomous system and their interconnections, right? And in the core, that's the tier ones, they're colored in sort of pink color. So that's what they see. Where the enterprises are, they at the edge, they're at the perimeter of this circle. So who owns the risk? Who is responsible for routing security? Is it all 78,000 networks? Is it organizations, direct providers, connectivity providers, SaaS providers, or cloud providers? Is the enterprise itself? Those questions are not very clear for enterprise, and as a result, there is lack of demand. This issue is simply not under the radar of normal enterprise. It's rarely covered in risk assessment or SLAs. It's often perceived to be outside control, and therefore there is no way we can address this risk. And vendor risk frameworks often do not cover the routing layer. And of course, there is no surprise when your connectivity provider comes to enterprise and says, "Oh, could you please register ROA?" The answer is, "What?" Next slide, please. So we did some research, and this is top 10 from Fortune 500 companies in different sectors: finance, health, automotive. And we looked how much of their address space is covered by ROAs, right? And we think, yeah, if you want your traffic be protected, you better register those ROAs. This is not the case. I see health, 90% of the address space of those big companies, very important companies, is not covered by ROA at all. The same for finance, 70%, not great. Well, automotive doing slightly better, but still 45% of the address space is not covered. Next slide, please. Now, the thing is what enterprise have to realize, and that's what we are trying to convey to them, that for them, looking at their connectivity architectures, be it SD-WAN, connecting remote offices, be it cloud, storing assets there or the infrastructure, CDN, denial of service mitigation platforms, or direct internet delivery for their applications to their customers. It all uses just a few entities to deliver those services. So the internet for them is quite small. It's not that big blob of 78,000 networks. So it becomes a tangible problem that can be addressed, that you can control, and you can influence risk in this ecosystem. Next slide, please. And in fact, if you look at those architectures, the routing security for enterprise becomes really part of their supply chain security. And this is a known concept, be it software supply chain, be it any other supply chain. So the same way enterprise deals with those risks, they should take routing security. That is our main message, right? So you as an enterprise, you need to ask whether your connectivity, CDN, or cloud provider, the first line of defense, or your weakest link. Next slide. So that's great. Suppose you answer that question. Well, suppose can you answer that question? You need to really understand the requirements for connectivity provider to be your line of defense. And if they don't meet those requirements, they're probably a weakest link. So really, in reality, there are no best practices today that clear sort of represent clear enterprise-driven standard of what good looks like. So this is the whole idea of the enterprise program. We have part of this program already developed. This is the MANRS Plus. So we know, or from the connectivity provider perspective, what good looks like for enterprises, right? We don't have the enterprise perspective yet, and we don't have a buy-in from enterprises. So for this, the idea is to bring together a small group of enterprise security and network leaders to define that standard, to define those actions, and therefore influence or normalize this relationship between customer and connectivity provider in the enterprise environment. Next slide, please. So what we are looking for, really, and that's one of the challenges, because those are not usually people that attend MANRS community meetings, that are not usually people that attend network operators forums or groups. We're using different channels to reach out to them through our business partners, for instance. We are looking for senior practitioners from enterprise security, network, and risk teams, particularly in sectors such as finance, energy, healthcare, and critical infrastructure. And what we offer is really, that's an opportunity for them to ensure that the requirements reflect their real needs and not just ideas from the connectivity provider or their capabilities, influence how routing security is integrated in procurement and risk frameworks, and strengthen not only own resilience, but as a result, the whole ecosystem we depend on. That's why the enterprise program is also very valuable to MANRS as a whole, because by bringing enterprise on board, by creating this program and hopefully growing this program, we can improve the overall routing security in the internet. Next slide. I think that's the last slide I have. Yes, that's the last slide. Again, maybe I'd like to pause and see if people have any questions. I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah. Well, let's wait a bit. But Andrei, I personally have a question. Well, one of the sectors that is not explicitly mentioned on the MANRS yet is the government. But I see that enterprise is covers a lot of the government requirements that should be seen on the next years. There is any expectations on RFOs to make references to MANRS Enterprise? How is that? How are the expectations on that?
So it's interesting you mentioned that. In fact, we started a dialogue with Dutch government. They have what they call compliant experience. They have a list of requirements that when procuring for public services, those requirements have to be met. RPKI is one of those requirements. DNSSEC is one of those requirements. IPv6 is one of those requirements. And we're saying, hey, why don't you look at MANRS Plus and see those requirements as something that your connectivity providers should comply with, for instance. So now talking to governments is not a quick process. It's not like, okay, done, checklist. It takes time. So we in this dialogue. Another thing is that we from Secretariat, it's Alejandro and I participating in the European Commission has created open forum for multi-stakeholder forum for internet standard deployment. Alejandro, I think I'm not misspelling that name.
Yes, I was Googling it. It's a long name.
Right. And you'll probably talk about this a little bit, but that is one of the things that they bring together experts from various fields, not only routing, but also DNS and general connectivity, to provide recommendations for the NIS2 directive, for the deployment, for the implementation of NIS2 directive. A NIS2 directive is a network information security directive that is adopted by the European Commission, and that's transposed into legislations of all 27 member states, so the whole sort of European Union. So, well, we have to see how that will be it's shaping up, how that will be shaped up. But I think through our discussions, one of, at least as far as routing security is concerned, MANRS was seen as a model, right? So not specifically saying, well, you have to comply with MANRS, but a lot of sort of structure and requirements. I think the idea is to get that from MANRS. For governments, I think it's very difficult to use MANRS right away as a full-blown certification scheme, right? And we're not aspiring for that, right? I think we don't want to use our independence, and we don't want to formalize our processes too much. But these dynamics, I think it sort of goes into the right direction. We're monitoring this, we are participating there. So there is some dialogue starting. But I agree with you, governments is one of the very important enterprises. And who knows, when we form the enterprise program, maybe we'll get some representative for the governments as well.
Well, that all you mentioned, that makes me very happy, because now we have something to take to home and talk to anybody we need to talk and say, hey, this is what we have, something to take in hands and do our homework. Well, let's go to the next topic of our agenda with Alejandro. Alejandro, yeah, you can proceed.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm gonna talk on how our engagement activities. Yeah, it's a regular report in our meetings. You see how things are growing, and what are we gonna do to keep that growth in an ordered manner. Yeah. So I'll try to go fast, because I'm sure many of you will be waiting for Rob's presentation of the new observatory, which is fascinating. It's such an amazing thing. So I'll fly over the figures, and if you have any questions, just interrupt, raise your hands, your digital hands, or make some noise, and I will stop. Yeah. Okay. So in the first session, in the East session, this morning for us in Europe, we had a few of new participants, people that had never been to a MANRS community meeting. Yeah, and they were asking how does it work and all that. Yeah. So this chart was very revealing. Yeah, this was the beginning. With 13 network operators first year, and this is now over 1,300 and growing, because since we launched the new observatory, I see that the numbers are slowly growing, yeah, even if it's just been one day. So the figures are there. MANRS is growing more than 100 times since it started 12 years ago, and we count on you all, yeah, to make it grow. Douglas, you brought some new people to this room. I really encourage anybody to bring your peers, to be your customers to the new meetings, and to make sure that everybody, yeah, at least has a chance to understand what MANRS is, yeah, because that's the way we're gonna make it grow. So I don't know if many of you know that MANRS in 2024, the Secretariat role was transferred from the Internet Society to the Global Cell Alliance, where you see that little logo there. And well, it's been 2 years and a half already, and ever since, growth has been, well, it's continued. It's this moment is close to 24% since 2024, and well, you see also that we've been working hard on different aspects, the MDP, the MANRS Enterprise, bringing a lot of participation to the community, and also the new observatory. Yeah. So now that the observatory stage is over, we can start focusing on expanding the engagement. Yeah. So I hope that these figures will be even bigger, yeah, in the next years. You see that growth has been, well, most of the programs except for vendors, that one has stayed in this original number of 6, but the rest of the programs have been growing question. Yeah. The number one you can see to the left is network operators, almost 25% in these 2.5 years. Then we have the next one is CDN and cloud, 20.7, almost 21, a bit below the average. Then you have IXPs, where we have about close to 30 new IXPs in this 2.5 years, which is a big figure because IXPs, you know that they are like, well, they are the meeting points, yeah, and they can bring a lot of traction, yeah, to the system, yeah. And vendors, well, equipment vendors are the same figure, yeah. But we're happy we are it's beautiful that we are on the 1300 because it's 100 times more than what we were in the very beginning, yeah. This growth has been global. It's not focused on, well, there are some countries that stand out, especially Brazil, thanks to Nick BR and to the hard work of the network operators in that country. It's an example for the world. It's the number one country in terms of participation and also in terms of growth. And it's been constant, yeah, all over the history of since Nick BR got involved, and well, the last 2.5 years, it's also constant, yeah. The next country is, of course, the United States. That's where it started, and there's a lot of involvement there. But if you see the list of the top 10 economies that in the last 2.5 years, you see that there's a lot of countries from the European Union, Germany, Netherlands, Italy, France, and there's also countries from Asia Pacific, yeah, Hong Kong and China, countries or economies, Hong Kong and China, and we have Indonesia, Japan is also there, but growth is all over the place. Yeah, you see it in Latin America, you see it in North America, in Central Asia, not that much, but all over Europe, in Africa. So it's constant, yeah, and it's giving good news from all over the world. Yeah. So let's keep it up. In terms of year by year, since the GCA took over, we see that the figures of growth are getting a bit flat. 2024, we had about 11 new participants every month. 2025, it went down to 8.5, and now we are in 5.4. I think, well, we don't think we've reached the ceiling of the initiative. I think we still have a lot of space for growth. And this meeting is a very positive thing because it's together with the meeting in the morning. I think we're gonna go past or almost go past the 100 participants, so 100 people listening to routine security for 4 hours on a random Wednesday is quite a lot of people. So I think that the traction we're getting, the new observatory is gonna help a lot, and also the new initiatives are gonna help us increase those figures. And there's something about the observatory. You can see that we've done an analysis on the number of application processes. In 2025, it was about 1.7 application processes for every new participant. And in 2026, that figure has grown slightly to 2 application processes for every new participant. It's internal bureaucracy, but it means that there is some friction. And Rob will describe that later, but Rob Thomas, our head of engineering, in the new observatory, most of that friction is gone. So we hope that it's gonna translate into better participation and more speedy process. Yeah, and actually, as I said, I think we've had like 5 new participants just yesterday. Yeah, since that's what I was checking the figures. But so it seems that it's working. Yeah. So we also do a lot of work in terms of dissemination. When I say we here, it's not the Global Sub-Alliance, it's also the members of the steering committee, and it's also other organizations that support us. Yeah, they speak about MANRS. Yeah, the MANRS is featured in all kinds of events, in-person events, virtual events, webinars, all over the world. You can see that these 2.5 years, that's when we started our metrics. We've been in 36 countries, which is quite a lot. 7 in this bit of 2026, so not even half a year, but it's been more than 1 country in every month. And the countries for this year are the ones in dark, yeah. The ones in yellow are the ones across from 2024 to now. But still, every year we cover all the RIR regions. We try to speak everywhere where we have a chance. So if you have any commitments, if you would like MANRS to be presented or MANRS Enterprise or the news in the community, just let us know. We are open for participation as long as the agendas allow, and we can do it virtually or in person. Yeah, virtually helps a lot and it increases the reach, but sometimes we also travel, yeah. And last week we were in Spain, for instance, the ICANN event. We covered a lot of MANRS there. So yeah, this is it. 36 countries in 2 years and a half. I think it's quite a good figure, and we're gonna keep on going. So as we look into the future, as I said, most of the growth that you have seen has been organic growth. Yeah, it's thanks to the community and to the word of mouth and people getting engaged. They discover the MANRS in some cases. In some other cases, they just take the step and they complete the processes. But we want to have a little bit more of direct intervention in the process. One of the things we are doing is a list of initiatives. The first one is the one I was describing. We are trying to reduce friction in the application process. I think that's, we have a check there. This is based on what is happening on the observatory. Rob will cover that now, but it was a must, yeah, because the old onboarding process was quite difficult and challenging also for us. It took a lot of GCA resources, and that was preventing us from putting our efforts into other aspects, yeah, of growth. We also believe that increased participation of the community is going to also lead to better, to new uptake, yeah, to new onboarding, and more participants actually. The MANRS development process that Andre was describing before, that's an important aspect. We are democratizing and standardizing MANRS. We reviewed the charter with, I think it was close to 70% of favorable votes, which is a lot. It means that the community is well engaged and they really are in favor of what we're doing. And also we've run several election processes for the steering committee members. Douglas, you're a new one in the new round. It works well. People vote, people participate actively. We believe that this is the way to go, yeah. We do these meetings twice a year, well, 4 times, because every meeting has 2 sections, but we also do webinars and we do all kinds of activities. So it's very important that we keep on doing this and that we increase the participation so that it will help bring new people into the game, yeah, as you did today, Douglas. We're also opening to new audiences. That's what MANRS Enterprise was about. We just mentioned the governments, but it's also financial institutions, health. There are other segments that if we move MANRS to the side of procurement and to the side of demand, not only the supply, it can have well, it's a game changer basically, and we believe that we're gonna start getting new people on board, yeah, and from network operators and ISPs, but also to people that are in theory not directly involved by this, but they are really affected. So, like root security as a way to that. Also now MANRS was the inspiration of the Inter-Integrity program where Andre, Leslie, Rob, and I work here in the Global South Alliance. The vision here is we are trying to emulate the success of MANRS in other areas of the internet infrastructures. We have a project on domain abuse called Domain Trust, and we have a project on IP address abuse called AID, inspired by MANRS. They are not as mature as MANRS, but the inspiration is there. And now we're also going to start exploring the connections between, at the end of the day, we're talking about infrastructure operators, yeah? And we're going to start seeing possible connections, yeah? Crossing our data sets. We have 3 massive data sets. We are seeing things there, and we are trying to illustrate some of those, yeah? So expect some cross action in the coming months, and we also want to increase the value of MANRS, yeah, by giving you access to other sides of the internet infrastructures there, yeah. Next item, I think some of you, those who have been MANRS for a while, will remember that there was a MANRS Ambassadors program that was global and was acting mostly into large region in Latin America and in Asia Pacific. It had, I don't remember the number of ambassadors, but there was ambassadors, fellows, there was a number of people working and spreading the word, yeah? When the transition to the Global Alliance for the Internet Society, to the Global Alliance happened, we decided to pause it, yeah, because it was, well, the challenge of taking MANRS was quite important. So we said, okay, let's pause the MANRS Ambassador program and let's focus on improving the internal processes and MDP and observatory. But now that the observatory is done, we think it's about time to reactivate the MANRS Ambassadors program. Also, as a way getting new participants in specific areas. And we're going to do it small. We're going to start small. We believe that it's important to do things slowly and gradually. We have an agreement, a pre-agreement in Mexico. We've been active last year there, and language helps. I'm a Spanish speaker, so you haven't noticed my accent. And there's very good opportunities there. We have a group of people that are really eager to start working as ambassadors, and we'll use that pilot to test challenges and how it works, how it can be funded, and how it can be run. Yeah. If everything works well, we are having other conversations in other parts of the world, in Central America, hopefully also in Brazil, maybe. We're also having conversations in different parts of Africa and Asia Pacific. Yeah, it's also in the region, and even Central Asia. Just conversations, and we want to wait until the first pilot is done or is running at least to explore other areas. But we are very excited about it, and we think it can be really interesting. That's going to happen in the second half of the year. Also, Andre was mentioning multi-stakeholder forum on internet standards deployment. That's the forum where Andre and I are participating. The European Commission. Next week, we are going to Brussels. We'll have a meeting there. I don't know if Andre will come or not. I live there. It's for me, it's easy, but it's a very interesting meeting because, well, first of all, because MANRS was invited to join. Yeah, the European Commission is really eager. They want to identify what existing standards can support the NIS2 directive. That's the one that is protecting supply chains of critical infrastructures. And they really wanted MANRS to be part of this. And actually, MANRS, Andre did an excellent presentation in January when this meeting started. And it was clear that it's a very mature organization, that's a global reference. And I think we all can be proud of that. Yeah. So it was shown as an example to others. There are some other topics, IPv6, DNSSEC, and email security standards and protocols and all that. And MANRS was shown like, look, when the industry wants, it is possible, and this is what happens. Yeah. So we are very proud of it, and we are going to continue the conversations. They're going to last for 2 years, and that's another area of visibility where we believe we can grow. Part of this connection of the European Commission with MANRS is that the European Commission, the Joint Research Center, has been researching. They have been measuring the uptake of MANRS in European Union countries, and as they told us, as far as growth continues, they won't put too much regulatory pressure on European operators. So they check every year through the observatory twice a year how many new participants from Europe are and how the adoption of routing security, different aspects of routing security are growing in Europe. Yeah, so far so good. So that's a good thing. And yeah, the last item is very, very important. Those who were in the meeting in November, you remember that we were introducing the MANRS sponsoring campaign. We've been working very hard on that first half of the year. And now we are talking with a digital marketing company, and the idea is to run a proper campaign. In the meantime, we've been having conversations with some big names, and we've received good support there. If any of you want to join the list of initial supporters, just contact me. We'll be very glad. And the idea for this is to offer, first of all, to keep MANRS free for everybody. Yeah, we want MANRS to be free. We want MANRS to grow, and it has to be free. That's the idea that we want to. But of course, running MANRS costs money. Yeah, so we have to cover those costs in different ways. When the project was transferred from the Inter-Society, it came with financial support, but that financial support came also with an obligation to build a model of sustainability for the initiative. Yeah, and that's what we're doing now. This sponsoring campaign is open to everybody, is voluntary, and it has different levels. Yeah, different tiers. It starts from 1,500 euros a year, all the way up to $250,000 a year. Smaller contribution, small logo, bigger contribution, big logo. In the beginning, it's going to be a visibility action, very similar to the PeerInDB one, but the idea is to start adding other features to that. Yeah, but the first year we are raising awareness. We want participants to be aware of that, and those who want to show their pride and they want to show their logos next to some of those big players, it's going to be open very soon. So you'll receive SDs and all that. We're going to be doing some spam around, yeah, but it's important because we need to keep it running. And yeah, will you join the list? I hope so. And that's it. That's for me.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody.
I don't know if if anybody wants to make any questions to Alejandro. Well, no manifestations, so let's skip on the next topic. Robert, could you please talk about here's Robert. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Very much.
Share my screen. Okay, I always forget that it does that. That's okay. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that and hear me. Great. All right, so yeah, I want to touch on the new MANRS Observatory, the work that's gone into it, why it's so wonderful, and why we went through all the work, basically. So when GCA first took over as Secretariat from ISOC for MANRS, the observatory was comprised of two parts. There was the main observatory that everybody interacted with and generated reports, and then the data gathering component and processing component, Telescope. Now, the problem was that these two parts were built by separate parties and were kind of a nightmare to maintain, really. So a couple months before we took over as Secretariat, ISOC themselves were actually planning on rebuilding it. Obviously, that didn't go forward at that time because of the transition. But it was always on our cards. This is what we want to do. One, because they were already a bit of a nightmare to maintain, but also because they were built very differently they weren't built in a very maintainable way, and they weren't built in a way that was particularly compatible with our team at GCA. So, for anyone that knows much about software engineering, rewrites are always something that you don't take very lightly, but it was something that we felt was absolutely necessary. So I think I'm currently sharing just a screenshot of what the observatory did look like for the past 5-6 years. Yeah, so as part of the rewrite, we basically merged those two parts. I mean, we did a complete rewrite. We didn't reuse anything at all. And I guess the two main reasons I'd say that we went through this process, one was for data resiliency. The existing observatory basically relied on a handful of data sources for everything, and primarily not authoritative sources. So if they had an upstream problem, that meant that the observatory had a data issue that we were completely unable to resolve. So that was one, and then also extensibility. It was very, very difficult for us to implement the functionality that we've wanted to implement for the observatory, and functionality that the participants have also raised and said, hey, it'd be great if we did this. And we go, yep, that would be great, wouldn't it? But our hands were kind of tied at the time. So there were a number of different things that went into this whole process. As part of the new project, I mean, I'll quickly flick over and show you. So obviously this is what it did look like for the last 6 years. And then on Monday, we released the new version. This was an immense amount of work from my team. We spent about 2 years working on this. I think we're particularly happy with where it's at, but I'll quickly run through a few of the things. So I mentioned about data resiliency. So we now, like I said, it was a ground up rewrite. We now pull almost all data directly from authoritative sources, which also means that if there is some kind of an outage upstream, it only affects a small percentage of data. But more importantly, we also have fallbacks. So if the authoritative source doesn't have data, well, if they don't, in theory, no one else does either. But there are instances where they might have a technical problem, and a mirror has it available, right? So overall, it's a lot more resilient, is kind of what I'm trying to get to. But if we quickly flick through, for anyone that's familiar with the old observatory, we tried to keep things pretty consistent, at least for the initial release, while we then figure out, hey, how could we improve this, right? Right now, it's kind of a surface level improvement from a usability standpoint. But we still have the charts for each of the readiness scores. The old observatory was limited to 2 years of data. The new observatory doesn't have a limit. It's limited to the data we have, which is 6 years. So we can go all the way back to January 2020. and see how things compare to now. And then if we flick through, so we still have culprits, ROV filtering, and then you can see a breakdown of incidents by route misoriginations, route leaks, and Bowman announcements. You got IRR routing information and then RPKI routing information. And then down at the bottom, we have a map, which I mean, maps always tend to grab people's attention. So by default, this is sorted by the number of ASNs, so the bubbles correspond basically, and that we can switch to incidents or culprits, and you can switch over and see a bit more of a breakdown, and we can pin a couple to compare them and do all that fun stuff. And then we can also go down from economies up from economies to regions, or to sub-regions, or to RAR regions as well. And again, functionally pretty similar to the old observatory, we can then filter everything down to these things as well, right? So we can filter to, so if I filter to the United Kingdom, for example, we can see how that kind of compares. So if we look at the history tab as well, so this is something that actually didn't really work on the old observatory. So this was a bit of a fun kind of side-by-side comparison that we did where, and again, if you're familiar with the old observatory, you're probably already aware of this. Some things didn't work. The history page did if you weren't logged in. If you were, it didn't work. Some pages would take, 5 to 20 seconds to load and things like that. We're very passionate, well, not passionate. I think everybody should be passionate about performance. A big priority for us has been performance with this rewrite. I think our longest API response now is 700 milliseconds, or 1 second for an admin endpoint. So, we're very, very happy with overall performance there compared to the old observatory. So hopefully anybody that interacts with that will also notice that difference. But if we go through this history page, which provides a lot more stats than the old version did when it did work, so we get a nice breakdown of, Alejandro already mostly touched over this, but participants broken down by type by month, and then the AS coverage, which loosely corresponds with that, obviously, the number of autonomous systems, one that we see visibly on the internet, and then ones that have been claimed by participants. And then you can also see a greater insight into all of our raw data. So the amount of, so routing information, culprits, incidents, and then RPKI, and then ROV. ROV is also as a little note for here, ROV is the only data source that we don't have dating back to January 2020. It actually starts in 2023 because we were unable to source any earlier source of that data, partially because a lot of this data was migrated from the old observatory, and I believe ROV was only implemented into the observatory in 2023. So. And then similarly, again, we can look down and see coordination. So you have the other raw counts, but then we can also split this to percentage, which gives us a bit more of a kind of meaningful representation of the state of the internet over the time the observatory has been live. And we have the comparison page, which is, again, I think a very visually striking page because it basically allows you to compare different, so it allows you to compare multiple, again, we'll look at economies. So if we add the UK there, and then we change this to be United States, for example. Currently it's sorting UK and US. What have I done? Let's add a new comparison. There we go. So United States, apply, and there we go. And then we can see kind of how they compare on each of these metrics, and then we can scroll down. So you have reference point, which is just the global state of the internet now, and then you have the two additional points that we've added, and gives you a nice comparison point. And then the reference point is set from the global filter, so we can also change this, and then that would change all the metrics. And then we also have the rubber stats page, which is pretty similar to the old one. Well, this is good for a demo, isn't it? So it's a little bit more useful than the old version was, if anyone was familiar with it, where it kind of just gave you all the rows for a given economy or autonomous system. Now we can kind of break it down a little bit. So if we sort to United Kingdom, for example, it will then give us all the invalid and unknown rows there, and then we can drill down to an autonomous system and look at that information as well. So there are also kind of at least to us, the more meaningful parts of the observatory are the parts that are locked to logged-in users, so participants, which really allows you to drill down into an autonomous system. Obviously, I don't want to or we don't want to name and shame an autonomous system here. So we did this with screenshots, but this shows you parts of the autonomous system breakdown page where you can get where you can get full breakdown of each of the readiness scores. Again, this information was more or less visible in the old observatory, but a little bit harder to interpret. So we have M2 for filtering, and you can see the breakdown of route hijacks, attackers and accomplices, route leaks, and then bogon prefix announcements and admin bogon announcements. And then we have M9 for ROA registrations and RPKI valid routes. And then we have M7, again, the breakdown of M7 and M5. And then if we scroll down on the page, which looks a bit odd in this screenshot, oh, we have it here. You also get a nice score history. So it shows the last 6 months of that autonomous system. So we can see kind of whether they're improving or whether they're declining over time. And by default, obviously, it will show the last 6 months, but also if you set the global filter, it will show the last 6 months from that time. So if you set the global filter to December 2023, then it'll give you the previous 6 months from that time. And then we also have a breakdown of bogon announcements, IR registrations, and RPKI coverage, and you can review all the prefixes in our data set. So I had a point I wanted to say here, which has suddenly escaped from me, which is very useful. The ticketing process is a good thing to cover. So the Alejandro showed off the trajectory, how many participants we've seen year on year, or even month on month, and the old process was kind of very, very slow and manual, both for participants but also for our staff to audit them. And so as part of this overall rebuild, we decided to roll in that entire process directly into the observatory. If you're unaware, previously this process relied on a mixture of Jira and the observatory and kind of our WordPress website as well. So there's a little bit of a mixture. Now everything's directly in the observatory. And the reason that's important is, as I think Alejandro kind of highlighted, it allows us to significantly streamline the entire process. We've already processed several tickets from our backlog in the last 2 days because we have so many automated checks now that drastically reduce the amount of manual time needed to review each individual one. For example, in the old observatory as well, we had a few automated checks, but it still required an admin to go and run them and then paste the output to the recipient, right? It's still a manual step, and it sounds minor, but having that fully automated really should streamline this process moving forward. And then to touch on the API, so naturally things have changed a lot in the last 6 years, not just with the project, but with technology standards. And so we have released a new version of the API. The version 1 is still completely supported for now, but we do intend to deprecate it at some point in the future. So we put together this migration guide that just kind of details, where things are now. All the same data is still available. It just may be in a bit of a different format. Going back to ticketing, so we also have an FAQ. We noticed when doing a deep dive on our full backlog of the last, I think, 4 years of tickets, a lot of the same questions come up, right? Why is my Action 2 data, why is my spoofer data showing as lacking or whatever it may be? And so when you actually go to open a ticket now, those points are kind of covered here to try and cut down on those kinds of things. But we do also have a very detailed FAQ as part of our new documentation to try and to try and cut down on friction and to cut down on the amount of time that we have to spend as a team auditing applications and tickets. And then we also have our full API documentation. So the old I can't show the old docs anymore; they don't exist. the older API documentation only covered kind of the surface of it. I mean, it covered the critical observatory metrics. It covered readiness scores, it covered conformance, but it didn't cover 1,000,001 other things that the observatory had available. Whereas our new API covers absolutely everything. Anything you can do in the UI, you can retrieve through the API. It's the same way we build all of our projects at GCA. So this documentation is quite expansive. Obviously, I imagine most people are only really going to want the really critical stuff, but it is at least all here and well documented. And I think those are the main things I wanted to touch on. The only other thing to say, I guess, is that obviously one, this has been a huge undertaking for my team and I, and we're very proud of of what we've achieved here. Our top priority moving forward, now that we have this new observatory, is to listen to participant feedback and implement new functionality and features that we've wanted for years, but also the participants have raised for years, right? So we are actively listening for feedback. For anybody that uses the observatory, please do provide feedback, because we are listening and actively making changes. Even in the last few days, we've addressed a few bugs that a few people have raised, and or implemented functionality that someone said, hey, this would be nice, and we completely agreed. And the last thing, we will be releasing alongside our API documentation, we will be releasing a Golang and Python SDK to ease the integration with users, as well as a full command line utility. The reason for the command line utility, one, because we do it for all of our projects now, but also because over the years we've seen a number of community tools for the previous MANRS API. For the Observatory API, sorry, that covered on some of the functionality, but we felt that having an official tool was a necessity here, and I think that is effectively everything I wanted to cover.
Well, we have some questions here. Before, thank you very much, Robert, and congrats for the work for all of the team. And on the sequence of questions here, Steve Wallace asked about the authenticated IRR source or non-authenticated, or authoritative or non-authoritative IRR source. Did you differentiate those on the source you use it on MANRS Observatory?
I believe we do. Honestly, it's been a minute since I have we wrote most of that part of the data pipeline quite a while ago, but I'd be more than happy to chat offline about that, Steve.
Great, Robert. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a thing that we need to improve globally.
Definitely.
Let's purge the proxies, please. Okay. Gilberto Zorello from Brazil asks if it is possible to having an administrative user of the tool to have information of just one ISN of a group of ISN in detail.
I think I understand that question. So we do have quite an expansive permission model now, which is pretty similar to what it was previously in the observatory. Obviously, autonomous systems can only be claimed by a single participant, but we can have non-authoritative kind of claims over autonomous systems as well. So a single kind of group of users can all have access to the same autonomous system, if that makes sense, if that answers that question.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know if Gilberto wants to mention, but I believe that his point of view is to understand what is happening on Brazil, for example, or if somebody in Brazil is doing something wrong or right. Gilberto, please.
Yes. The point is, today I have an administrative user, and I work with different ISPs, and in order talking with them, I open the information for that ISP and talk with him. Okay, because this is very important for us having to see information, a dashboard involving one IS or a group of IS, because it's very common having operators that has many autonomous systems.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you so much for clarifying. So all of these filters can be broken down at the autonomous system level, and you can group autonomous systems as well to get a summary. So where you saw me grouping by economies, you can also do the same for autonomous systems. Now, obviously, we guard that behind participants, namely because scores are generally private. But we do have partner participants for exactly this purpose. So you can apply to be a partner and get either access to a group of autonomous systems, specific ones you're interested in, or economies or regions. So, for example, APNIC are a partner for us as well, and they have their participant has access to all to APNIC as an IRR. So all autonomous systems that fall under APNIC, they have access to, if that makes sense. So yeah, you can absolutely drill down at the autonomous system level, but you have to apply for that access because we don't openly provide that.
I believe it's a matter of authorization on the owner of the information, let's say, on this. We also have here Sergio Clayman giving kudos about the excellent work. Also, Anthony De La Cruz, and Dan York and Steve Wallace are also doing a very strong question about the AS set and the huge monster all over the internet AS covering AS sets probably. And,
so actually, I was so internet too. I mean, we serve about 1,100 ASs, and in one way that would be nice to sort of express trying to get aggregate data would be to say, here's the AS set. Show us these metrics for the AS set.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
So you open in your mic, you have a public documentation about that. Do you want to mention something?
So we would like to look at the metrics like, filtering, row adoption, those things. And it would be convenient if we just said, here's the AS set, return the metrics for that collection.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So I think this was raised in a previous meeting, if I remember right, and it is something that we're absolutely interested in looking into. It wasn't part of our initial launch, but I do already have it on our board of top priorities to looking into, because I do agree it would be great to have that functionality in the observatory, and not to overpromise things, but like I said, it's so much easier for us to do these kinds of things now that I'm pretty confident that we can offer that functionality soon.
Cool, thank you. Very impressive, by the way, the whole thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, here. Tiago mentioned about the national research entities and the AS sets, and looking the metrics based on that. It's a very good observation. And Dogmatary also mentioned about the public document that he has published, a very good document. And I don't know if somebody wants the word to make some to say something. No, if not. I have a question about the scenario for you, Robert, about the API. Well, we have been talking, well, Andre mentioned some things, Alejandro, Steve, and Enterprise MANRS, and we hope that MANRS can be target of queries to everybody seeing if the other one are doing the things correctly. So can we expect that the backend and front end servers will hold that up with so many API queries? How is that? Do we have statistics of statistics consumptions? How is that? Everything's working good.
So with the new observatory, we track absolutely every single request that comes in. We track the time the request takes. So that single one loading the rower stats there page took a little bit longer than I would have expected. So I'll be looking into that as soon as I'm off the mic here. No, this is like I said, performance is absolutely a priority for us. And I did have in my notes, not that I mentioned here because I forgot about it. With the old API, we had a user that would make about 2.2 million requests every month. Because the data they were pulling basically wasn't available in a more convenient way through the API, which is part of the inspiration for the version 2 of the API, is to make things a lot easier to query at bulk or batch, right? So I believe the number off the top of my head was it took them 2.2 million requests a month. Now it should only take them about 1,000 once they switch over to the new API. But we always build to scale, and we are built for high throughput is what I'm trying to say.
Well, thank you very much for your answer. And I would love to keep on this discussion about the ASX and everything, but we need to keep on our agenda. And Alejandro, can you please share your screen again? And now we call TJ. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And could you please come and bring?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. TJ is correct?
Yeah, TJ. So yeah, it's fine.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You can go. Thank you.
Yep. Let me share my screen.
You should be able, TJ.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it works. It
Okay.
works.
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is TJ from Virginia Tech. So today I'd like to talk about 3 different things. The first one is mainly about how our team measures ROV adoption. And the third one is how we can use this framework to extend it to for ASPA deployment measurement. And the third one is ROA and RPKI objects measurement platform, which is similar to MANRS Observatory, but our focus is more like a historical result. So let me start it. So in RPKI measurement, there are 2 questions we have been focusing on. The first one is how do network operators use RPKI to claim their resources? And the second part is how network operators use RPKI to filter invalid BGP announcements, which is ROV. Answering the first question is relatively straightforward. So what you can do is we crawl all the RPKI publication points, and then we measure which ROAs or ASPA objects are registered. However, answering the second question is not that straightforward because we simply do not have access to routers. So because of that, our team developed a platform called Ravista a couple of years ago. Our methodology is very simple. So back in like earlier RPKI era, there were lots of RPKI invalid prefixes in the wild. So what we do is if you're interested in one AES does ROV or is upstream does ROV, we found some vantage points within that AES, and then we test whether those hosts can send any package to these RPKI invalid prefixes. If they can send it, it means there is no ROV happening. But if they're not able to reach those RPKI invalid prefixes, it may signal that these ASs or their upstream ASs are doing ROV. So we've been doing this measurement since like 2021, and we'll every day, and we keep publishing our results on this URL. However, the challenge was our framework at the time cannot determine who has actively deployed ROV. For one AES, if one of their upstream providers has deployed it, some RPKI invalid prefixes may be filtered while others may not. So because of that, what we can tell is, this AES gets some benefit of RPKI, whether they actually deployed it by themselves or their upstream providers do it. But we can't tell whether this AES actually deployed ROV. The second question was, second challenge is, so our analysis measurements were based on many RPKI invalid prefixes in the wild. Sometimes it is due to misconfiguration or actual hijacking, but as time goes by, we see RPKI ecosystem quality has been improving rapidly. So now we see much less RPKI invalid prefixes, we can use it. Sorry, there is a year one chat. Hopefully the question is not for me. So what we do instead, now we made our new platform called RScope. Our high-level scheme is to leverage entire ROV ecosystem. So for instance, this is how RPKI objects are stored. Top level, they are RIRs, and also we can run our own publication point. And each relying party who would like to use RPKI ROAS to filter invalid announcement, they have to come to each publication point and then collect all the RPKI objects and ROAS, and then using AS-specific protocol, it forwards all the VRPs to AS. So what we do is we run our own ASN and IP prefixes, and also we manage our lab, also publication points, ensuring that all RPKI relying parties must retrieve data directly from our publication points. So let's say if these relying parties or relying parties who would like to use ROV have to come to our publication point, and then there are ASNs behind these relying parties who consumes these VRPs. So we run our own ASN prefixes. Let's say our ASN is 777, and we have our own prefixes /24. And we also announce this prefix from our ASN. So now what we want to do is we specifically focus on one RP. So what we do is we create two distinct ROAs for this /24. One is test ROA associated with another ASN, AS for example 666, and a control ROA associated with our own ASN number. So because we want to focus on relying party 1, we return this test ROA exclusively to this relying party 1, which makes if ASN consumes this VRP from relying party 1, then it will reject our not BGP announcements because it is coming from ASN 777, but the ROA is set to 666. And after that, we run our own scanner, scanning whole internet. And then if ASN 1 was previously able to reach and respond to our network, when you return a just benign ROAS, but cannot do so after the introduction of this test ROA, it suggests that ASN 1 has likely deployed ROV independently, and also ASN 1 is likely using RP1 for RPKI validation. So there are another techniques how we differentiated between self-ROV deployment versus upstream ROV, but let me skip these technical details. So let me report the numbers first. So we've been doing this measurement since May 2025, and so far we were able to measure 21,000 ASs. And what we found was more than 1,000 ASs actually deployed ROV themselves. And also there are roughly 3,000 ASs got some benefit from these upstream providers. And we found these self-deployed ASs use 1,600 RPs hosted in 1,300 ASs. So there are some observations. For instance, 52% of ASs have deployed ROV themselves use only one single RP. And only 14% deploy multiple RPs across different ASN, even though the RFC 7115 recommends configuring multiple RPs to ensure resiliency. And also, when we focus on the rank of ASs, higher ranked ASs protect disproportionately large number of downstream for sure. And a top tier ASs secure hundreds, while small ASs secure a few. And among the top 5,000 ASs, 74% of them self-deploy ROV, which is good. So what it tells you is that tier 1 and large ISP drive global ROV effectiveness because they can get the smaller ISPs can get the benefit from this tier 1 and large ISPs. And also ROV adoption is skewed toward the large providers, which means small networks remain vulnerable if without this upstream protection. So let's talk about ASPA validation. So we are working on extending our framework to understand which ASs actually do ASPA validation. So we use a similar idea of our scope, which is we dynamically manage our publication point. So we serve a different RPKI objects to each RP. And then to make a valley, valley artificially, we now manage the two ASNs. I'm going to talk about it more details later. And we control ASX and ASY, and we announce our BGP like this, XY transit, and X originates the prefix related via another ASN, Y, to a real transit provider. So what we do is like this. So let's say if you're interested in a target AS, the ASPA validation behavior, what we do is we only serve these ASPA objects to this specific RP. So for instance, ASPA object of ASX, we just put a dummy list. So which makes the Y's provider becomes X. And then Y's ASPA objects goes to a actual transit. So we make this kind of value. And then to every other RP, we serve no ASPA objects, so they will just propagate our announcements normally. So if this target AS comes to our publication point, we return this ASPA objects, and if it does actually ASPA validation, it will drop our announcements, which becomes unreachable when we do a trace road or a ping. So in this way, we are working on measuring ASPA validation. The third one I'd like to talk about is the RPKI objects measurement. So we actually run this rpki.netsecuredlab.org, this website. Let me show you. So we focus on historical objects. So let me see. So this is the website. So what we do is every 24 minutes or 24 minutes, we go to all publication points and collect all the RPKI objects and validation, and we provide statistics. So for instance, you can look up your own prefix like this, and then if you click the show full history, it shows you what kinds of ROA objects existed for this specific prefix like this. So there have been like 3 objects. And you can also look up by ASN number like this, and like there are a bunch of prefixes. And yeah, you can do the same as we did for prefix lookup or organization lookup. For instance, lots of ISPs and like this. And if you click the 7922, and you will see a whole bunch of prefix with ROA. And you can also click the full history. So in case of this specific prefix, there have been 3 different ASs had the configured for ROA like this. And also you can do a coverage by ASN, which shows you by comparing the actual BGP announcement, it shows you among the BGP announcements coming from this ASN, percentage-wise, how much of these prefixes are covered by ROA. And it will show you adoption rate and also all the prefixes not announced, but ROA existed. And also, we have the ASPA Observatory. This is the beta version. So it shows you how many ASPA objects are alive and the list of parent and the customer and the provider pair. All right. Finally, this work is joint work with Virginia Tech and the Cloudflare, and it will appearing at the IEMC 2026 this cycle. So if you're interested in more technical details, the paper is in my website. Finally, this research is supported by NSF and Comcast Innovation Fund. Thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, this is stupendous. Very, very, very good. Several third friends like Steve, Tony, Nico, and Sergio are congratulating you. And well, I even had the reference of those relying points that you made. I need to reassist all this to understand. Tony, no, sorry, just the screen appeared to me. Does anybody want to make some comments about that? Yeah.
So TJ, this is really fantastic.
Thank you.
Really excellent work. This will be very helpful. And yeah, thanks for sharing the URL.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, so if nobody has any other question, we can Tony mentioning. Tony is asking, given that so far there's a little to known in the way of ASPA validation is as how team. Sorry, Tony. Could you express yourself on
Yeah, sure. What I'm saying is, I mean, I don't believe that networks are actively doing ASPA validation very much in the field yet. So it must be challenging to validate the method, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there are only so our data source that we're going to use is there's a one. I was looking up the Nano blog post. I'm sorry, Nano mailing list. There is a couple of ASNs are claiming that they're actually doing ASPA validation. So we are going to test that. And the second one is because of this concern, which is when you crawl all the ASPA objects, it shows you the list of provider link that this AS relies on. So our understanding is some network providers are reluctant to publish ASPA objects because of this concern. So our team is working on another proposals or research to reduce this kind of privacy. So that's kind of two tracks that we are doing.
Okay. Measuring impacts on both sides. Okay. Yeah, Tony is mentioning about the
there's just very few BGP implementations. I think Bird perhaps can do some, and maybe there's some other software ones, but the big iron companies, I think maybe they're early field test images, but I don't know that any networks have deployed it at scale so far.
Yep.
So I think if you share the URL here for that last one, the RPKI history, that one, or all of them, people would like it.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. I don't know if I'm skipping something, but well, TJ, thank you very much for your presentation. And with that, we can skip to our next topic on our agenda that comes from Nicolas. Nicolas, are you there? Yeah, I know you are. Please come up.
Yes, hello everyone, but I need to check the security configuration for sharing the screen. I don't know why, but let me just 1 second. Okay. Security it says, let me check 1 second. Okay. Okay, I will just go outside and enter again in the Zoom. 1 second, please.
Okay.
Super rapidly.
During that, we can do some measuring about the hairs on the room, the hairstyle on the room. There are several bald ones here by some reason, maybe probably related to the kind of issues that we deal. Okay, I believe.
You need to put me as co-host, please.
Okay. I can't do this just
On it. Now you should have it.
yeah.
Okay, I am just 1 second here. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Funciona, sí.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me put my camera as well. Okay. Hello, everyone. Nicolas Fiumarelli from Uruguay. I am part of the MANRS Steering Committee, also Internet Society Uruguay board member and chair of a new group that is a regional group that is the Internet Society LAC Measurement Working Group. And today I will present to you about routing security and post-quantum era, a little about ASPA and a little about PQC. So we all know about this. It's just a reminder, vulnerabilities in BGP hijacking, origin hijacking, but also route leak, accidental or voluntary route leaks due to misconfiguration, etc. We know securing the BGP highway is like RPKI and ROAS, and then ASPA to fix the ASPA and the route leaks itself. Also, other complex hijackings that you could see. And as you may know, there are last year route leaks, very important. There was one involving 3 RIRs, also with an autonomous system from LACNIC. I think Carlos is in the call as well if we want to mention something, but I think it is really important and was very clear that ASPA is not optional, but another important fact to have. And then RPKI fundamentals, I will just skip this. ROA, how the ROA works, you have a prefix, an authorized ASN, and you need to put the maximum length. I put an example there. When you validate, you can or accept the route if there is at least one ROA covering the prefix. This can be unknown if no ROA, and this can be invalid if all the ROAs mean different ASNs for that resource, or if the max length doesn't fit. So these are the possible validation status, right? So in ASPA, is the different one is the who has the ownership of defining who are the relation ASNs is the owner of the autonomous systems, right? So the owner of the autonomous system will put in the RIR system they are using, put in the list of the AESs that are in relation with them, different kind of relations, but at the end is to as others explain, is to validate the AS path, right? To assert that they are not lying us in the announcement, but not only in the origin, but along all the AS path. And here is an image that I took from FastNetMon, credits for FastNetMon, but it's true that almost all RIRs by this year we have ASPA implemented in their systems. LACNIC and EPNIC are the last ones, but AFRINIC is like no. We know about the situation about AFRINIC. We changed the board and what had happened, so we don't have a certainty of AFRINIC to have ASPA by this year. So But yeah, here it comes the quantum threat, right? Everyone is talking about this. There were major challenges and major insights on advancements on quantum computing. Last year, I could mention Quantinium, I could mention D-Wave, and different kind of quantum computers. I am now a little more expert in quantum computers as last year. But nothing really changed so much, but politics, right? So regulations. For example, yesterday, France announced to stop certifying products without quantum safe encryption. European Commission is already working in a plan to define the roadmap by this year. We are seeing the news all over there from the side of the quantum computing advancement, but also from the side of the post-quantum readiness. There are two algorithms that can run in a computer that could really affect elliptic curves at all, and RSA, and as well a global algorithm affecting AES. Not really affecting there are kind of people that say that AES is still quantum resistant, but we really don't know. So yes, there were some work at the IETF level, at different organizations I will mention later, about selecting the post-quantum standard for RPKI specifically. There were several prominent NIST candidates evaluated, but there are constraints that are critical: the keys, the size of the keys, the signing in the repository, signing times, retrieving times. So there are a lot of variables there, and there were some work happen evaluating dilithium, Sphinx, and Kyber, that were the NIST ones at least. But there are two more that are Falcon and Mayo that are like more viable standards for RPKI. There is already measurements on this. For example, SIDN, that is a company in the Netherlands, did some research with Falcon 512. There is also a March 2026 Archie document mentioning that you can have a hybrid, similar to hybrid approach. It's not a hybrid approach because it's basically using RPKI plus a Merkle 3 ladder there, and then adding like a Merkle 3 authentication thing, but then you have the delegation and an optional coexistence with RSA, that is the common one, the current one, right? RPKI, but it's not quantum resistant. But we need to have coexistence because of the different relying parties, the different validators. It's not changing all at once. So that is. But this is like the best study, at least personally, I found that is like is 10 times higher the CPU time you need to for the total validation, but with this new thing. But at the end, we can say that the internet is almost prepared for this. We already have seen, for example, DNSSEC grow. That is a similar technology. So why not in the RPKI? These are some of the advancements, as well as advancement in the IETF. In the LAMPS working group is the one that defined the certificates using RPKI, the X509 certificate that you can now, with the last draft, is being analyzed to have RSA and Falcon signatures like in a hybrid, and also for some of the validator tools to introduce this next year. And also ERIC protocol, maybe you have heard about this. That is a new HTTP-based synchronization. It's relying on Merkle 3 as well, and it will reduce the bandwidth and the state managed overhead compared to rsync retrieval and RDP as well with the deltas. So it's better than the deltas as well. So these are new things that will help to have this migration to PQC, because we need to retrieve more information. We need to retrieve larger certificates, etc. And what happened? That we know now that with the advancement of the AI, specifically what happened last week, right, with Fable 5 and Mythos 5, this AI can now create and falsify routes on the go and do DNSSEC avoidance, and then you can really enter networks. You can really create nasty things with this AI. So we are in an era when everything changed. Security, as at least personally, is not more optional; it's mandatory. The AI can also correlate CVEs and avoid everything and falsify routes, as I say, so on the go. So security now depends entirely of our current state of infrastructure, and RPKI is one part of that. Well, there are also several efforts worldwide. This is some pictures from the Internet Society Lag Measurements Working Group. We created this year a tool that measure different things like DNSSEC, SPF, DKIM, on the mailing, on the DNS, on the RPKI, on the HTTP headers, but also other indicators like universality and accessibilities. There you can find the GitHub, and we are also including PQ readiness. That is the idea for future RPKI, ASPA, and ROAS, etc. That can be that the certificates can be PQC, right? So we can measure the level of PQ readiness in the future when these protocols are a reality, right? More approaches. In the Netherlands, for example, the Internet Society Netherlands created this year 2 working groups, one for routing security with PQC and one for domain name system security with PQC. There are efforts and collaboration with NLN Net Labs, SIDN, and also AFNIC, that is the registrar for the .fr domains, is advancing on routing security and DNSSEC, while we are coordinating also with IGF level dynamic coalition like the Internet Standard Security and Safety Initiative that is leading these working groups. Actually, they have today we had a meeting with the DNSSEC PQC, and on Monday we had the meeting with the routing PQC. Well, it's very good. There are people from ICANN involved as well, and the idea is to create these test beds to improve the high performance and go with this cryptography for the future. There are also advancements like the IETF, the last week advancements. What more I can mention? Okay, that is all from my side. Actually, the idea was to bring this, that we are now in a different moment of time. What we do not measure, we cannot understand. So the most we measure is the better we can manage and we can protect. And there is an image there with the Observatory 2.0 from MANRS as well. So you have all these tools, and let's go measuring and protecting the internet as never before. Thank you for your time, and open for any question you might have.
Alejandro, you raised your hand. Tony?
No, I was just clapping.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I don't know if somebody wants to make, well, Steve, please.
Hi, Nico. That was great. Did I hear you correctly that there's some question about whether AES is quantum safe?
Yes, that is a whole thing, because short algorithms is reducing RSA exponentially, but in the case of Grover algorithm, is decreasing quadratically AES. So if you have AES 2056, it means that with a sufficient capable quantum computer, it's like having AES 128, like the half. So that is the risk. But some practitioners and researchers around the world say that AES 128 is almost impossible to crack, actually, because it's super difficult. But there can be mathematical methods and new things that can alter that. But for now, it is considered quantum resistant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have any other questions here. Well, I believe we do not have any other questions, so we can go to the next topic. And I believe we are on schedule. So Steve, please, you can go now.
Okay. So this URL is rootbeer.internet2.edu, and this is a set of tools that Internet2 and CADA are developing, and it's supported by NSF, a grant. When you go to this page, there's a banner up here that sees if you're part of the research and education network infrastructure. And in fact, most of these tools are kind of set up to support networks that are within the global research and education infrastructure. That's about 2,700 ASs in 108 different countries. And so this first banner here, and so I'm at home at the end of a AT&T connection, and so it shows I'm not really part of that infrastructure. But if you were part of the infrastructure, it would show that your IP address is in that infrastructure, and it would also show the routing policy of your network. In other words, does your network have a higher local pref for routes from this infrastructure? So I'm going to show a few tools. Some of these tools are designed to kind of only be valid if you're in that infrastructure, but the ROA planner works regardless. And so the ROA planner is a tool to help you create ROAs for a prefix. And the way it works is it collects, when you put in a prefix, and I'll put in a prefix in a minute, when you put in a prefix, it looks up data about that prefix from internet routing registries, from current routes in the internet, and routes in the history of routes within the internet. And the reason it does this, so it looks at all those things, and it basically says, here's the set of ROAs that you would need to create, assuming that routes may appear that are consistent with IRR route objects, that routes we see in the past may exist in the future, and that the routes we see today, you want to make sure those are considered valid as well. The reason we built this tool is I've helped a number of organizations create ROAs, and we had an internal tool that wasn't web accessible. It basically produced a spreadsheet with some of this information. And occasionally we would come upon cases where, for example, there might be an event. So a campus might have a periodic event where they take some of their IP address space and announce it from a different location. So maybe they have a workshop and they take a subnet, maybe they take a /24 from their /16, and they announce it from a different network for that workshop. And when they're making the ROA for the /16, the people making the ROA may not know that that happens once a year, or they may not remember. And so they make the ROA, and if they don't make a ROA that accommodates that, they may find out the next time they have this offsite workshop, that's an invalid. And we came across a handful of examples where that would have happened without this tool. It also helps, it's common for people in higher education to use DDoS scrubbing services that announce more specifics when there is a DDoS incident. And so this helps you identify those and give you some information so that you can create a ROA that addresses those. But the example I'm going to give you is a different kind of example. So this /16 is IP allocation that's used for ORNet. ORNet is a regional network in Ohio. And this is a /16 where ORNet actually reassigns or reallocates this address space to different organizations within the state. And so they carve up this /16 and they provide it to different schools in the state, and those schools announce it differently. And so if you are ORNet, and if you are interested in making the ROAs that cover this prefix, and again, the holder of the 16 is ORNet, and even though they've done sub-assignments or sub-allocations, ORNet actually has to produce the ROAs, so they're, at least today, the RIRs don't let the recipients of those allocations create their own ROAs. So if ORNet wanted to create ROAs to protect the space, they would need to protect the space comprehensively, including all of the allocations they've done. So in addition to routing history and IRR information, it also breaks this down by RAR suballocations. So it shows you all the possible routes, again, that might exist based on routing history or route objects for this. And you can see they've assigned this to a number of organizations. And it gives you a list of ROAs that you would need to create if you wanted to cover all of these. So if you made single prefix ROAs, then to cover all of these, at least based on the information that's collected, you would need to create 21 ROAs to ensure that the valid announcements are still valid. If you were creating multi-prefix ROAs, which I think is really, even though this is officially the best practice, I think this is actually the best practice. So these are the multi-prefix allocations you would make to cover this address space. It works for v6 and v4, and like any tool like this, you need to use it to inform you about information about the row you want to create, but it's not perfect. And given the consequence of creating a ROA that may not be correct, that you could lose connectivity, it's something that you need to double check. So it's not a tool that you can just say, well, I'll just use whatever the output is. You need to double check it. So that's the row planner. We have another tool, an AS set planner, and the AS set planner is intended for networks within the RNE ecosystem. And so you give it an AS, and it will show you, it will look at the RNE routing table. So it's not looking at the complete global routing table. So we have a way of getting a snapshot of what does the research and education environment look like. And it will show you the AS set membership that, based on a snapshot of the routing right now, should be part of this AS. So it is essentially calculating the AS's customer cone based on a current snapshot of the RNE table. And you can also give it an AS set to compare. So I can say, well, here's an existing AS set for this AS, and how do they differ? So it's created one dynamically, and I've given it an AS set that already exists. And you can see much of the AS set that already exists matches what it configured as what it determined was based on the routing information. And then it's showing ones that are only in what it's calculated, not in the AS set you provided. And then it's showing you sort of the inverse. What's in the AS set you provided that is not in the AS list that it calculated. So it's a way, so there are a large number of networks within the RNE community that may not have current AS sets. And this tool is essentially to assist them in gathering information to show what their AS sets should be. It also shows you sort of in a text format, the hierarchy of the ASs it finds in the routing table, so you can see what that looks like. And I'll show you one more thing. And I know we're running out of time. So this is an ASPA partial planner. There is no way that we know of, the CADA and Internet you know of, to authoritatively say what your ASPA should be given current routing information. We can infer what it's likely to be, and this tool uses data to make an inference about what the ASPA should look like. And so if you give it an AS, it'll show you what it thinks your providers are, and it will diagram them out. And it will differentiate between what it thinks are providers and peers, and for V4 and V6. But the caveats are, this is not foolproof. And in fact, it works reasonably well for networks that are not near the core of the internet. But as you get closer to the core of the internet, it is less reliable. It can be useful to help you identify providers that you may not have thought of. We're working to improve the quality of the data, the AS relationship data, to improve the results, but it will never be foolproof. But it is a tool to help you get a sense, maybe give you a second opinion on your ASPA. If you have an ASPA, it will actually show you the difference between the ASPA and what it thinks should be your ASPA. So that was a quick demo of those tools. I'm happy to answer any questions folks may have.
Okay, no answer until now, but well, I got very impressed with the tools you presented, especially that one on the AS sets. We know that it is a problem. I think that worth mention that the biggest problem on AS set, cone or AS set, is the definition of what AS set for what we are talking. So everybody, what is your cone, or what is your upstreams, or what are your peering partners? This is a thing that we need to improve. And okay, that was very good. And the question about your presentation about the ASPA suggestion, very impressive also. Robert brings here a question about the.
I was just replying to a comment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if anybody has any other question. We are 4 minutes after the schedule, but if anybody wants to be here, I would like to hear. Anybody have any questions? I don't think so. Well, so considering that, I don't know, we declare our meeting, and it's over. Thank you very much for your presence, and we will see at the end of the year on a new meeting like this. Thank you.